All right, I think we're set to go. So let's give her a start here and see. Yeah, my Excel spreadsheet doesn't want to come up, so I'm going to just try to see if it'll go again. But, okay, who do you think won? Well, you guys were pretty certain of yourselves there. Holy cow. Why'd they win? If they did in fact win. Lots of sales to begin with, right? Huge sales. I mean, the other teams, for the most part, 100 million less. Ferris is the only team they were only 50 million less, so huge sales advantage. So dominating in that fashion. Pretty good, but not the best by any means. Contribution margin. And kind of same here, pretty darn good. Yeah, their SG&A is in the middle of the pack anyhow, so pretty good there too. So, yeah, why do you suppose their sales were so good? Huh? If their contribution margin is not so high, you might think compared to the other teams, pricing maybe a little bit, but generally it gets back to that customer buying criteria. Meeting that. We'll take a look maybe kind of as we go down. Shares, looks like Erie keeps buying back some stock, interestingly. Speaking of that, where's Jedrick? Are you guys deciding to alternate days when you're going to be here, Whitney?
No.
Because he was here Tuesday and you weren't, and now you're here and he's not. So, okay, just curious. Other teams, maybe not so many changes. We can see that when we look at the cash flow. Not a lot going on in the debt world. I might end up asking some questions as we go along. I haven't yet, but when we get later in the round, I might ask some questions about the bonds here. Do you guys understand, what these mean as we're reading along them? Let's just take a minute then and kind of briefly look at it, because I may ask some questions about these. If you look at the bond issue, the series number, and this isn't necessarily the way, the series number isn't the way it is in the real life, the rest of this stuff should be, but they give you a series number here and it says this is series number 14.0, okay, that's the initial rate that it was issued at, was 14% then in that case, 13.3%, 11.6%, okay, that's the initial rate that it was issued at. The face amount, okay, that it was issued at, what the current yield to maturity is. Okay, now the yield to maturity, the original rate was 14%. The yield to maturity is 12.7%. That tells me that the bond is selling for a premium right now. Okay, what it means is that rates have come down in the marketplace. We talked about this some in finance, I know, but rates have come down in the marketplace. Thus, the price of this bond is going to go up, right? Okay, because technically when you buy the bond, you're still getting 14%. You're getting a 14% interest payment from them based on the original face amount. Okay, and so it'd be nice to be able to buy it at face value if rates are only 10% in the marketplace, or 12%, if that's the best you could do in the marketplace otherwise, right? But the person that owns it isn't going to sell it to you for that. They're going to want a premium then, right? Because rates have come down in the marketplace. And so the premium's right here. Okay, 109.93, they've calculated it for us here, and what they're saying then is that it would cost you 109%, basically 109.93, almost 110% of the original face value. Okay, so if you added 10, 11% to that, you'd be up around $23,000 then you'd have to pay for that bond, right? And thus your yield to maturity, instead of being 14%, your yield to maturity would be 12.7% based on the fact that you're paying a higher price for the bond. So everybody kind of understand how bonds work, okay? That's truly how they work in the real world, right? We're in an environment right now where rates are just creeping up a little bit. And since rates are creeping up, we're actually seeing the price of bonds go down a little bit then, right? Okay. So they're always, the price and the rate environment are always inverse. So cash flow, see any changes here? Look, everybody did very well on inventory, right? So last round, I think we were talking about we had a little too much inventory. Everybody kind of had big negative amounts there, but everybody got rid of some inventory here. So we see that go down, or we see people gaining cash because they get rid of some inventory. Good deal. The plant improvement still taking place fairly robustly. Team Baldwin probably the least of any. The others are all kind of, they're investing some money in plant improvement still. Whether that's in capacity or automation, I'm not sure, but one of those we can find out. Dividends, Team Andrews paying a pretty big dividend. Kind of nice. Ferris did sell some stock. Of course, it's a computer team. It doesn't know any better. Erie's buying back stock, interestingly. Some debt, long-term debt issued. No early retirement of long-term debt, retirement of current debt, and some short-term debt issued. Big amounts by both Andrews and Ferris, our two computer teams. A little bit by Team Erie. Cash, everybody's got some cash. Erie's cutting it close, but that's what you like. Okay, you like to have accurate cash management there. Hanging on to too much cash is just kind of an expense, right? Basically lowers your ROE if you want to look at it like that. Okay. Some huge amounts of cash with Andrews and Ferris, you might worry about what they're going to do with that cash, right? Are they going to make some investments in it? Are they going to buy back stock? Are they going to pay some dividends? Like Andrews did pay a big dividend. It still has a lot of cash. Okay. Yeah, and I would tell you that's pretty poor cash management for our computer teams. That's a little too much cash. So, accounts receivable, plant and equipment, equity amounts. You got Baldwin and Erie are very low, right, in terms of equity, and Digby pretty high, almost twice the amount of equity. So Erie could make half as much money and still have a return on equity that would be about equal to Digby's. That's really, really rough. Okay, it's really, really rough saying that, but in terms of profit, that's kind of where they're at. Okay, and so you can go small, in this game. You can make your company kind of smaller and still have some good returns on equity if you manage it correctly. That's all about the financial management. And my guess is this is because Erie's reduced their product offerings. They're competing quite a bit in a couple of segments, but they've kind of let some other segments go. So they just don't have the need for the plant capacity and those types of things that other teams might have. Profits, that was all above. Investments here. It looks like we had some investments in TQM, but not a bunch. Kind of surprisingly, I might have expected a little bit more in TQM because it's still pretty early, and those investments do tend to pay off over time. Last round I was commending everybody because we were using capacity finally, but now this round, of course, we had a lot of inventory last time. So I guess I shouldn't be surprised that maybe people backed off on production, and yet expecting that they might need that production. We didn't see any radical shifts in the capacity probably. So I'm probably less surprised than I initially was, right, when I think that through a little bit. Digby, however, is using a lot of their capacity. Ferris a little bit, Chester a little bit, but still have lots of excess capacity overall, right? Here's our inventories, and you can see they've, decreased pretty dramatically. In fact, those are some really nice looking inventory numbers if you look at it, because there's not a ton. It doesn't look like in any one particular category. Yeah, low end maybe. There's more in the low end than any other, but the low end's quite a bit bigger than the other categories too in terms of total sales. So I don't see a lot of inventory buildup. That's pretty good planning. Chester's backing out of a couple areas too, you can see. Erie's eliminated a couple already. Any new products coming on? Cat's a new one, looks like, fairly new. Sold out. I don't see any other new ones. So people aren't really spending money then. It'd be interesting to go see what people are spending money on in their up in the cash flow, plant improvements, see if that's capacity or if that's automation going on. Ferris is getting out of the traditional segment. Look at that. That's interesting, our computer team. Baldwin competing a little bit there, but not a ton. That's kind of a neat looking chart. Erie's kind of dominating. That's not surprising when that's the only, they're really only competing hard in a couple of segments. I think they still have one product in one of the segments, but not surprising that they're dominating there. Were they dominating? They weren't dominating here though. Chester's dominating actually here in the traditional segment, interestingly. So where's Digby getting all their sales? Man, if it's not in those two, they're doing fine here. And they're doing fine here, not dominating, but they must be dominating in the high ends then. Pretty well here, although Ferris is dominating in the high end. Digby's by far the next biggest, and the other ones kind of peter out pretty good. Digby in the performance. Yeah, you wouldn't say dominating, but again, it looks like just in every single category, Digby might not be the top. They are here in the size, but they're running first or second just about in every single category, whereas other teams are maybe leading in one category and then falling off significantly in other categories. So that's where they're getting their sales. You don't necessarily have to be the leader in every category, right, to be a winner in this game or to be a winner in real life either. So actual and potential, I didn't see a ton of differences, right? Looks like there were some small ones here and there, but not a ton of big differences in terms of the actual and potential. Perceptual map, we're getting kind of spread out. We're seeing some products that have pretty much left the areas. I don't know if they've picked up a little bit of sales. They may have, but they're pretty much out of range here. So unless they get moved dramatically, they're probably not going to be too competitive. These ones here are about ready to leave the outer circle here. If you get to the outer circle, you won't sell any, I think the guide says, right? So you won't even pick up any strays if there's some available, I think, if you're outside of that outer circle. And it's getting close. Whether it would be or not next round, I'm not sure. It'd have to depend on how fast the drift is and whatnot. But good straight line there. You see Fast is kind of entering into that low end, kind of interesting. It looks like some others are getting pretty close to entering into that low end, while these ones are almost on the backside of the low end. Can these, people haven't made a lot of adjustments on these. Do you think that without making any adjustments that these products will continue to be able to sell throughout 8 rounds? Yeah, maybe next round, yeah, but at some point in time, somebody's got to make a move there. So I can tell you that's an interesting decision, because do you wait until the very last possible round to make that move, or do you make the move now, sacrifice some sales now, but yet you might be in a better position than 2 rounds from now? Yeah, that's kind of the decision you get to make with that low-end product as it's sliding out the backside there. See, and look at that, some great productivity numbers. 112, 111, 113. Oh, I was going to point out, too, when I was up here. You guys see how low Team Erie, I think it is? Yeah. Look at that. Their labor cost for their low-end product is down to $1.29 per unit. $1.29 per unit. Look at Ferris. They're at 8 and 7. Boy, is that a competitive advantage. Even Dell, Digby, theirs is at $4.22, $4.30. Baldwin's the closest at $2.36, but that's still better than a buck. Okay, a buck better in terms of labor cost. And yeah, they didn't use a ton of overtime this time. Erie didn't. Okay, and that might be a big difference here today. Baldwin didn't use a ton of overtime though either. So this particular round there wasn't a ton of overtime used. But again, that could be because we had a lot of inventory coming into the round, if I remember right. So, but $1.29 is getting to be pretty impressive. I think I told you that in my years of doing this, I have seen a team get the labor cost in the low end down under $1, maybe once. So we might be getting close to that because we're just in the 4th round. But they're already at 10 on automation, so can't do much more there, right? So there have to be some other ways to get the labor cost down besides that. Oop. HR, that's kind of, TQM, we're going to take a quick look at that. Some investment along there is kind of interesting. Where you're investing surely makes a difference. If you look at this, these teams looks like they've spent maybe more in terms of TQM, but where Erie's spending their money is increasing demand. Okay, they've bumped their demand here by 10.5, double, right? 5%, 5% here. Okay, now reduction in R&D cycle time too. Erie's pretty high in that, and that wouldn't be meaningful at all for Erie. Not to pick on Erie here, but because they're competing almost entirely in the low and traditional segments, and your R&D cycle time there is just not that important, right? It's not as difficult to keep those products up to date. When you're competing in the high end, high performance and size ends, that would be far more important. Okay, but also the material and labor costs, huge reductions. So I'm guessing Erie last year probably spent quite a bit more. Maybe I'd have to go back. Did you guys spend the max maybe, or do you remember? Not the max. There is no max, but kind of what they recommend anyhow. So yeah, and that's again some huge competitive advantages here, and another one of those things that can help drive down labor costs. You know, if a person wants to push this. So I mean, you see some labor cost reductions here of 11, 12% versus 6 and 7 and 8%. So lots of opportunity there. Questions about that? Just want to see who won. Now let me see if I can get Excel to work here. It hasn't been wanting to fire up. Man, Excel just doesn't want to fire up. I don't know why. So I don't know if I can show you guys the winner spreadsheet. I might have left it open on my computer. That shouldn't matter. It still should let me open a read only. Okay. Well, we'll go on to the assignment. I guess if it opens up, I'll show you guys later, and I'll get it posted so you can take a look at it. You want me